When the car hit us, my boyfriend shielded my cousin, leaving my leg to be crushed. After the emergency surgery, my mom stared at my bloody, broken leg and wept. Elena, look at you. Let your cousin stay with Ethan. She really likes him, and they'll take care of you in the future. As I stared at the photo announcing my boyfriend and cousin's miraculous survival, my tears soaked into my pillow. When I blinked, I found myself back in the year my cousin came to live with us. Bright lights flickered above me, and an intense pain coursed through my lower body as my mom sobbed at my bedside. Elena, she said, Luna told me you and Ethan broke up. Relationships can't be forced. If you hadn't clung to him so tightly, you wouldn't have run into the road in anger and gotten hit. It's a relief Luna wasn't harmed. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to face your aunt again. Struggling to suppress my fury, I asked, You believe everything Luna says? My mom snapped back. Are you accusing her of lying again? Why can't you let this go? You'll need her help with your leg in the future. Overwhelmed, I knocked the cup from my bedside table to the ground and screamed, Get out, just leave. Once more, I found myself staring at the survival post. Luna had been living with us for 6 years, taking over my room and my mom's affection. Before my engagement, she stole my boyfriend too. She showed up in a handmade wedding dress, crying pitifully in front of Ethan. I can't hide my feelings anymore. She sobbed. You love me too, don't you? Please give me a fair chance. Ethan let go of my hand, his lips pressed into a tight line. When the truck came speeding toward us, he instinctively shielded Luna, leaving me to bleed on the ground. The pain of betrayal and injury overwhelmed me, and I blacked out. When I woke again, Ethan sat by me, gently brushing my eyelashes. Sleepyhead, he said. I'm explaining the lesson, and you're dozing off again. Disoriented, I stared at the younger, fresh-faced Ethan. Hearing noise from the living room, I stood up, and my legs were intact. Elena, come out. Your cousin will be living with us, my mom called. Before I could revel in the joy of standing, her voice snapped me back to reality. It was the year I was a sophomore in high school. My aunt, caught cheating, had been abandoned by her husband, who moved to another city. Concerned about Luna's upcoming graduation exams, my mom brought her to live with us. Luna, fresh from the countryside, stood in plain clothes, her tanned face shy and timid. My mom pushed her toward me. Luna isn't great academically, so spend 2 hours daily tutoring her. Her tone was as commanding as I remembered. My grades weren't great, especially after choosing the science track because of Ethan's influence. But Mom insisted. Your aunt sacrificed her education for me. As my daughter, you owe it to the family to help. She guilt-tripped. Reluctantly, I helped Luna, correcting her English and letting her spend time with Ethan, our science tutor. How did Luna repay me? She secretly altered my university application to ensure I wouldn't attend school in the same city as Ethan. Meanwhile, she used money from my mom to sneak onto trains to visit him. I only discovered this after my engagement when my mom remarked, I had no idea Luna liked Ethan for so long. She's been spending all her money on train tickets, probably eating instant noodles to save up. Isn't it touching? As I stood frozen, my mom added, Elena, I'm warning you. Don't show Luna any attitude. Before I could reply, Ethan appeared. My mom's tone softened instantly. Ethan, you're here. Study with Elena. Ethan barely glanced at Luna, who stared at him with wide eyes, her rustic pigtails making her look far from the polished girl she would later become. That day, my mom asked me to move out of my room. Luna's eyesight isn't great, and your room has better lighting. Let her stay there for 2 years. In my past life, I protested but lost. Luna stayed not just for 2 years, but throughout college, and into her relationship with Ethan. Once, returning from my aunt's house, I saw Ethan leaving my room with Luna, who had tear-streaked cheeks. Ethan chastised me, saying, Don't be so petty, Elena. You can't keep all your gifts from your aunt just because of your room. We fought, but he always knew how to pacify me. I never realized he enjoyed my affection while also entertaining Luna's quiet devotion. Given another chance, my first thought was to avoid them entirely. I didn't need love or family, but I wouldn't lose my leg again. Turning around, I started packing. Elena, what are you doing? My mom asked, alarmed. didn't you tell me to move out of my room? I replied. I'm going to Aunt's house. It's closer to school, and I can study better there. Mom's face twisted in anger. You know your aunt looks down on me, yet you're going to her to spite me? Luna begged. It's my fault. I can stay in the storage room. Please don't leave. She grabbed Ethan's arm, pleading. Ethan, Aunt told me so much about you. Can't you convince Elena? Ethan brushed her hand away and walked over to press down on my suitcase. You can share a room with Luna. There's no reason to upset your parents over such a small matter. Ethan had always been someone who valued family. In the past, he often urged me to respect my parents' wishes and avoid clashing with my cousin. He made me feel guilty, convincing me it was fine to stay in the storage room while insisting that leaving was out of the question. The influence of PUA is truly insidious. This time, I kept my distance from all of them. Ignoring everyone, I left for my aunt's house late at night. The next day at school, I saw Ethan helping Luna up the stairs. Elena, you're so reckless. No matter what disagreements you have at home, you shouldn't just storm out like that. Luna is new here and unfamiliar with the school. As her older cousin, you should be taking care of her, Ethan said. Luna looked at him with soft, grateful eyes. Thank you, Ethan. I wouldn't know what to do without you, she said sweetly. I observed coldly, noticing the faint smile on Ethan's lips despite the disdain hidden in his eyes. Of course, what man doesn't enjoy being admired, even by someone he doesn't find attractive? Ignoring their exchange, I responded frostily. If you want to take care of Luna, go ahead, but don't involve me. Ethan looked stunned. Elena, what are you talking about? We've been close since middle school. Luna tugged at my sleeve, her voice trembling. Cousin, what did I do to make you dislike me so much? Irritated, I shook her off, and she stumbled, falling down a few steps. Ethan froze for a moment, then immediately rushed her to the nurse's office. I stood there for a moment and then laughed bitterly. Here we go again. Luna's specialty, faking accidental falls, just like those dramatic stumbles from soap operas. This time, I decided to use her tactics to sever ties with my family for good. My mom arrived at the school, furious, and pointed at me without waiting for an explanation. What happened? Why did you push Luna down the stairs? Luna's minor injuries had been bandaged by the nurse, but she clung tearfully to Ethan, her hand gripping his sleeve. Seeing her act made my chest tighten with anger. My mom shoved me roughly. Why are you standing there? Apologize to Luna. No, I said firmly. I didn't do anything wrong. She fell because she wasn't careful, not because of me. Mom grabbed my ear, shouting, Accusing Luna again, are you? That word, accusing, triggered old memories. When I was younger, Luna had coveted my crystal ball princess castle, a gift from my dad from overseas. I refused to give it to her, so she smashed it on the floor, shattering it. Before I could react, she sat down, crying, picked up a shard, and scratched her leg. When my mom came in, Luna crawled over, looking pitiful. Auntie, don't blame my cousin. She didn't mean to, she whimpered, her voice trembling. Mom's heart melted instantly, and she scolded me harshly. Back then, I didn't realize some people genuinely believe the weaker one is always in the right. I tried to defend myself, but Mom refused to believe Luna would hurt herself just to frame me. She labeled me a liar, someone who couldn't own up to their mistakes, treating me as though I were some kind of villain. Now, Luna's tear-filled eyes looked at me once again. Please don't argue because of me. I'm sure my cousin was just upset about losing her room and accidentally pushed me. I don't blame her, she said pitifully. Ignoring her, I turned to the nurse. Is it just a minor scrape or something serious? I asked. It's just a small injury, the nurse replied. My mom's eyes widened. How can that be? If it's so minor, why does Luna keep saying it hurts? The nurse sighed. If you don't believe me, you can get a hospital scan. I added sarcastically, better hurry before it heals. My mom was too furious to speak. Ethan, his face hardened, walked over and grabbed my wrist. Elena, it doesn't matter how badly Luna is hurt. You caused it, so you should apologize. Maybe I'd been too compliant in the past to notice how much Ethan loved siding with the so-called weaker party. I yanked my wrist free, causing him to stagger. See? You started it, I sneered. I'm just defending myself. For a brief moment, I saw a flicker of hurt on his face, but I didn't care. Ignoring my mom's shouting, I walked away. That night, I still didn't return home. My mom didn't come looking for me. Instead, she spent the night taking her beloved niece to the emergency room. Luna posted on social media, sharing 9 photos, including one of her bandaged calf, a caption thanking Ethan, and pictures of my mom arranging her registration, picking up her medicine, and preparing bone broth for her, something that took Mom 2 hours to make. The caption read warmly, "Even though I'm hurt, I'm surrounded by love." I tossed my phone aside, feeling oddly calm. Things had been different in my previous life. When I had a fever of 39 degrees Celsius, my mom ignored me, instead taking the acne-ridden Luna to a dermatology clinic. She claimed the doctor there was renowned and hard to book. Back then, I felt lost and hurt. Why was it like this? Wasn't I her real daughter? Now I understand. Some things, like love and the bond between a mother and daughter, can't be forced. As I pondered, my aunt brought out a plate of sunshine rose grapes, a treat she knew I loved. Each one was carefully washed and sweet. "Elena, what are you staring at?" she asked. "Just watching my mom spoil my cousin again," I replied. My mom and aunt had never gotten along in the past, yet now things seemed so different. I used to avoid criticizing my mom in front of my aunt to keep the peace between them, but now I saw no reason to hold back. My aunt, who had a fiery temper, became enraged immediately. "Your mom is the ultimate sister sympathizer. Helping your aunt pay off gambling debts wasn't enough. Now she even favors her niece over her own child." My aunt had always cared for me, even though she didn't get along with my mom. She often sent me beautiful dresses, but most of these either ended up being sent back to Luna in our hometown by my mom or sold by my aunt to cover her gambling debts. Sensing my gloom, my aunt wrapped an arm around my shoulders. "Your cousin isn't serious about anything. He just graduated and is already running around aimlessly. Stay here as long as you like and keep me company," she said. The next day was the weekend, and my aunt prepared a table full of shrimp dumplings, steamed buns, wontons, and soy milk. "You need proper nutrition for studying. This is the time your brain needs it most," she said. Since my aunt had once run a restaurant and was a fantastic cook, I ate until I was stuffed. Suddenly, the doorbell rang repeatedly. When I opened it, there stood my mom, glaring at my aunt. "Big sister, first you sent my husband off to work in South America, and now you're trying to take my daughter too?" she accused, the atmosphere turning tense. My aunt, unwilling to back down, snapped, "Blame yourself for not being capable enough to keep your husband or your daughter." I used to always side with my mom during these arguments. She had convinced me that my aunt had tried to break up her marriage from the start by introducing my dad to a high-paying job that sent him abroad and left them living apart for most of the year. Hearing this repeatedly, I naturally grew distant from my aunt. At that time, my aunt's husband was still around, and her restaurant kept her too busy to visit me except on holidays when she sent gifts. But in my previous life, after my leg was crushed in an accident, my aunt rushed to the hospital, frantic, willing to spend any amount to save me. In comparison, my mom had asked me to let Luna have my boyfriend. Now, as I watched them argue, I amused myself by cracking sunflower seeds. Furious, my mom barked, "Elena, are you just going to stand there eating? Pack your things and come home. Your aunt has no idea how to raise kids. She only has a high school diploma, and your cousin went to a vocational school. If you stay here, you'll turn into a failure." My aunt planted her hands on her hips and retorted, "I might not have a diploma, but at least I've run my own business. Better than being a housewife forever. Wouldn't you agree?" That remark hit a nerve for my mom, who had refused to return to work, using my young age as an excuse and relied on my dad's salary while funneling money to her own family. Looking back, I see now that her so-called sacrifices were just another way to maintain control. Not wanting my aunt to stress over this chaos, I interjected, "Mom, my room belongs to Luna now. I'm not going back." My aunt looked at my mom with disdain and said, "What a shame. Half the money for your house came from me, and now you're using it to play the hero. Just how thick is your skin?" I gestured, miming a wall, and said, "As thick as a castle." We exchanged a glance and burst into laughter. My mom's face flushed with anger as she snapped, "Elena, If you don't listen to me, you'll regret it. She stormed out, and our laughter faded. In the past, I had been too obedient. My mom believed that studying science and math would lead to better job opportunities, and Ethan insisted that taking the science track would mean we'd be in the same class, attend the same university, and major in the same subject. So I abandoned the arts, where I excelled, for a path I struggled with, like racing someone else's prized horse with my weakest one. Even then, I sacrificed my own time tutoring Luna, whose grades were worse than mine. My mom justified it by pointing out that my language and English scores were better, so I was obligated to help her. Meanwhile, Ethan became our science tutor, giving Luna chances to spend time with him. And who was left with nothing? Me, the fool who ruined her own future. Now, with a second chance, I was determined to change my fate. In the office, the homeroom teacher looked hesitant. Elena, our school separates students into science and humanities from the first year. If you transfer now, it'll be difficult to catch up. I shook my head, memories from my past life flashing through my mind. I had wasted years studying a subject I wasn't good at. My major had been secretly changed by Luna, and I ended up at a school far from home and Ethan. Those 4 years were a waste, and when I graduated, the only job I could get was barely worth mentioning. Ethan had sneered, "Once we're married, you can just be a housewife. Your salary wouldn't even cover a few of my outfits." I had acted sweet and compliant on the outside, but inside I had my pride. To get promoted, I worked overtime endlessly. Ethan complained I didn't make enough time for him and once even slipped up, saying, "Luna's so much more understanding. One necklace and she's all sweet talk. You should learn how to make your boyfriend happy." That had infuriated me. If Luna hadn't meddled with my major, if my mom hadn't pushed me away from my dreams, if Ethan hadn't pressured me, my life wouldn't have been such a mess. Taking a deep breath, I resolved to do things differently this time. I decided to leverage the knowledge I had from my previous life to reshape my future. The teacher, realizing I wouldn't back down, pulled out a form and said, "You'll need a parent's signature. The school can't proceed without it." I was taken aback. Mom would never agree. Sure enough, when I got home, I was met with a storm of scolding. "Oh, so you've gotten bold after spending a few days with your aunt? Studying humanities won't take you anywhere. You'll end up as a low-paid office worker." Luna, feigning concern, chimed in, "Cousin, you should listen to Auntie. She cares about you the most and knows what's best for you." But I noticed the glint in her eyes, revealing she didn't mean it. Luna clearly didn't want me staying in the science stream, as it meant less interaction with Ethan, giving her more chances to move forward. However, this time, things were different. My science grades were mediocre, but I excelled in language and English. Relationships are about mutual exchange. While Ethan was assisting me with math and science, I was helping him improve his English and writing, areas where Luna struggled. I no longer spent 2 hours daily tutoring Luna as Mom had demanded. Ethan wouldn't have the patience to sacrifice his own time to help her improve. Staying quiet, I watched as Mom, confident she had me trapped, declared, "Elena, come back home. You know I dislike your aunt, yet you stay with her just to defy me. Luna is struggling with her studies and you need to tutor her. I'll even buy a bunk bed so you can share a room." The price to stay in my own room? No, thank you. I looked her straight in the eye and said calmly, "That won't be necessary. I'll call Dad and ask him to come home to sign the papers." "Do you dare?" Her expression darkened immediately. Later, Ethan caught up with me at school and asked, "Why are you switching to humanities? Are you trying to avoid me?" I replied, "No, I've just realized the path I want to take and won't compromise to accommodate others anymore." Frustrated, he said, "Are you upset because I've been helping Luna and ignoring you? Your mom asked me to tutor her, saying, 'Luna's your cousin, and we're family.'" I pulled out my phone, opened a private social media post from Luna, and showed him. "Just tutoring, huh?" The post bragged about Mom buying her a new phone and paying for expensive acne treatments so she could attract boys with her flawless skin. It didn't stop there. Her first time trying Odin, her first Ferris wheel ride, and her first trip to an aquarium had all been with Ethan. For Luna's birthday, Mom invited a bunch of my classmates, just as she had for mine. She told everyone Luna's birthday was close to mine and asked them to take care of her. Luna arrived dressed like a princess with perfect makeup, looking more polished than I, the actual birthday girl. My friend Summer muttered, "Luna's acting all sweet and innocent. She just got here and is already clinging to Ethan and flirting with the other guys." I stayed composed, which made Summer nervous. "I know you don't like Ethan anymore, but don't you care that she's taking over?" Following her gaze, I saw Mom on the phone with the cake shop. "I told you the cake should have 2 names, but make Luna's the highlight. Elena's can just be initials." Summer spoke up for me. "Auntie, it's Elena's birthday today. How can her name not be on the cake?" Mom retorted, "I've celebrated Elena's birthday for years, and now she's ignoring me by staying with her aunt. She should be grateful her name's even on the cake. How petty." I laughed. "Mom, why don't you mention that the money for the cake and dress came from Dad's hard work?" Furious, she raised her hand to slap me, but I stepped aside and met her gaze coldly. For a moment, she seemed to hesitate. Perhaps it was my imagination, but she no longer seemed like the overpowering mother who had once controlled me completely. Could it be that, like a spring, the parent-child relationship works in reverse? The stronger I became, the weaker she felt? The banquet began and Ethan arrived with gifts. Handing one to me, Summer teased, "Oh, sharing the love, are we?" I refused to accept it. Irritated, Ethan said, "Elena, transferring doesn't mean you have to push me away." Luna rushed over, lifting her dress, and nudged me aside. "Ethan, did you bring me a gift?" Ethan, clearly hurt, shoved both gifts into her hands. "They're both for you." Watching his reddened face, my anger faded. I had my own path now, and it was clear we were destined to part ways. No need to let fleeting feelings hold me back. When it was time to cut the cake, Luna and I stood side by side. It was her first time in the spotlight, and she was ecstatic, frequently glancing at Ethan. Seizing a moment when she wasn't looking, I firmly pushed her head into the cake, grabbing her hair and smearing her face in cream. She let out a sharp scream, her perfect makeup ruined, and her lovely dress stained. Mom tried to intervene, but my aunt, who had come with a gift, held her back. My classmates were thrilled and eagerly joined in, smearing cake on Luna. Only Ethan stepped in, grabbing my hand angrily. "Enough, Elena. How could you stoop so low?" Summer defended me, saying, "We agreed this birthday's theme was to go big and have fun. Everyone here knew. Didn't you?" My classmates, already on my side thanks to the treats I'd given earlier, chimed in agreement. I stood back, indifferent. Last year, Mom had given Luna the beautiful dress Dad had sent me, saying, "You've had plenty of nice things as a child. It's Luna's first birthday party. Let her have the spotlight." I was infuriated when we cut the cake, and Luna shoved my face into it. When I tried to express my anger, she darted behind Mom, pretending innocence and batting her eyelashes. "I saw on TV that cake fights are part of birthday celebrations," she said. I thought, just giving her a taste of her own behavior? What's so wrong with that? Mom grumbled, blaming me for ruining Luna's birthday. But Dad's expression turned serious. "That's enough. Today is Elena's birthday. You used my money to buy someone else a dress, and you didn't even bother to write my daughter's name properly on the cake. So who's really at fault here?" Luna was too embarrassed to respond, but I felt a sting in my chest. Dad was always so occupied with work that he barely had time for me. Yet the clothes he sent fit perfectly, and the foreign books and travel magazines he picked out aligned with my tastes. Mom sneered, repeating her usual digs. All he does is buy flashy things for his daughter instead of saving money for me. Having shed my old illusions, I finally saw the reality. Dad endured countless struggles out in the world to silently show his love for me. Before leaving, Dad handed me a bank card, his face warm but his words restrained. "This is my personal savings for you. Don't let your mom know. You're 18 now. You can make brave decisions for yourself. If you want to stay with your aunt, no one can stop you." Later, I learned Dad had used his own salary to negotiate my freedom from Mom's control. After transferring to the humanities stream, I stopped wasting time on petty conflicts with Luna. Every moment since my rebirth felt valuable, and I absorbed the knowledge I had overlooked before, like a sponge soaking up water. It was exhilarating to focus on what I excelled at. It felt as natural as a fish in water. With hard work, I ranked among the top 10 in my first senior year exam, astonishing many. Few realized how much effort I had poured into catching up. The summer before senior year, I turned down Ethan's invitation to travel, ignored Mom's demands to return home and tutor Luna, and spent my days immersed in studying. My aunt worried about me, prepared healthy meals, and even hired a tutor to support my efforts. Meanwhile, Luna continued flaunting herself on social media, showing off new dresses Mom bought her, bragging about how my room was now hers, and even sharing that Mom had heartlessly given away my favorite stuffed animal to a homeless person. Ethan started appearing less frequently. Initially, I understood. He had only let Luna close to him out of curiosity and to provoke me. But as my grades soared, and teachers began using my essays as model examples, his unease grew. Particularly now that Leon, the future top humanities student, was spending time with me. Ethan couldn't hide his jealousy. He confronted me outside the classroom. "Elena, did you switch to humanities because of that guy?" He added, "Girls end up taking care of families anyway. Do you really need to aim so high?" At that moment, I saw Ethan for who he truly was. In the past, he had pushed me into science, disregarding my strengths and interests simply to keep me in check. He wanted a soft, compliant girlfriend, but real love should help someone reach their full potential, not hold them back. Calmly, I replied, "We barely knew each other before. Who knows what the future will bring?" Just then, Leon approached, his expression cold and dismissive. "Elena, didn't we agree not to waste time on irrelevant people? Let's go." As for how Leon and I became friends, it started last summer. While expanding my extracurricular reading at the library, I noticed Leon practicing photography. Thinking of my future goals, I initiated a conversation, and to my surprise, we connected easily. Through our discussions, I began to see how expansive the world could be. Leon agreed with my vision for the future. Digital media would thrive, and studying humanities would position me to excel in areas like content creation and strategic planning. He even shared his top-tier notes with me, free of charge. By mid-semester, I ranked among the top 3 in the humanities class. My aunt, thrilled with my progress, promised me a big reward. I smiled and replied, "No need. Just bring my cousin home." She didn't understand my intentions but followed through. My cousin, who had struggled academically under my aunt's strict upbringing, had taken an interest in travel and documenting his experiences. When he returned during winter break, I treated him to milk tea and asked Leon to record a short video of him enjoying food. After adding captions and music, I uploaded the video to a platform I knew would gain traction in the future. Success doesn't happen overnight. Drawing on my memories, I brainstormed high-potential ideas and enlisted Leon as my photographer whenever possible, coaching my cousin in real time. Once we ran into Ethan and his family at a distinctive local restaurant. Ethan shot me a frosty glare and said, "Elena, the graduation exams are close. How can you waste time like this?" His mother added smugly, "Elena, it's been a while. Why are you hanging around with unruly boys?" A word of advice. Girls don't need high degrees. They need to be proper. You'll never outscore Ethan, but you could stay in the same city and take care of him later. Support your husband and raise your children. Hearing such condescending advice again after so long made my head ache. I fixed Ethan and his mother with a cold stare. "You're nothing. What gives you the right to tell me what to do?" Flustered, Ethan said, "Elena, I've let go of the past, thinking you were just being rebellious. But you can't talk to my mom like that. Apologize." That's when I fully grasped how deeply I had been conditioned in my past life. Girls shouldn't be too strong. Girls should be modest. Girls must shoulder the responsibility of caring for men. The obedient girl could be molded to fit anyone's expectations, yet never become her true self. And what did obedience bring me? A disloyal boyfriend, a biased mother, and broken dreams. I threw the freshly poured lemon iced tea right into Ethan's face. "Someone ranked 100 places below me doesn't deserve to speak to me," I said as I left the restaurant. My cousin gave me a thumbs up, grinning. "Elena, in just 3 days, you've transformed from a timid pushover to a fearless she-devil." "Stop talking so much," I retorted, standing on my toes to twist his ear. That's when I noticed the faint smile playing at the corners of Leon's lips. Perhaps this was his way of teasing me. In response, Ethan began dating Luna openly, and his social media turned into a daily showcase of their outings. Didn't these two need to prepare for the upcoming graduation exams? Ethan's progress had clearly plateaued, while Luna's grades were as terrible as ever. Holding the high-scoring exam papers I had just received, I felt an unusual sense of peace. The best form of revenge wasn't losing control or venting anger, but surpassing your enemies while they sank further into failure. Leon interrupted my focus on the Chinese textbook. "Your cousin's account gained 500 more followers yesterday," he said. His words brought a smile to my face. This was just the calm before the storm. I gave Leon a friendly pat on the shoulder. "You've been working hard. Your photography is great, and your editing skills are amazing." He raised an eyebrow. "So, how are you going to thank me?" "What do you want?" I asked. He replied with a sly grin. "Apply to the same university as me." Without hesitation, I nodded. Leon reached out to pat my head, a faint sparkle lighting up his eyes. As graduation exams loomed closer, I braced myself for another challenge. Although I had stopped interacting with Ethan, the poisonous glare Luna sent my way was impossible to ignore. What could I do? I didn't listen to Mom or make time to tutor Luna anymore. The tutor I had hired quit quickly, raising their fees due to Luna's weak foundation, and Mom dismissed them angrily. To Luna, I no longer offered love or support, but at least I still had my grades. Like in my past life, Luna managed to crack my account password and ran to an internet cafe to tamper with my records. Unfortunately for her, she was too late. I had already hired someone to keep an eye on her and recorded her dirty deeds. When her actions were exposed, Luna got on her knees and begged Mom for forgiveness. "Auntie, I'm just worried. You raised my cousin for 18 years and she ran off behind your back. If she goes to college in the capital, she'll never return to care for you." Mom frowned and looked at me. "Luna's right, Elena. There's no reason for girls to study so far away." I smirked. "Do you want to see what your precious niece did?" She applied to a terrible school thousands of miles away and illegally altered my personal information, which is a crime. Hacking into a system like that could land her in prison for over 5 years if the authorities take it seriously. Luna escaped punishment again, as Ethan used his connections to bail her out, but I wasn't concerned. Privileges come with risks, and the bigger they are, the more they accumulate. Revenge, after all, is best served slowly. 10 years isn't too long to wait. Leon and I reported to the university in the capital, while my cousin rented an apartment nearby. The three of us, often called the geniuses of Zal, regularly gathered to brainstorm ideas. I spent late nights crafting proposals, and my cousin became increasingly confident and natural in front of the camera, causing his follower count to skyrocket. Capitalizing on the booming trend of short videos, we expanded our team on campus, using our expertise to create top-notch accounts. As my bank balance steadily grew, my cousin grew excited. Waving his hand dramatically, he announced, "I'm buying a sports car." I stopped him. "You earned this money, but that doesn't mean you can waste it." "Of course, cousin. You're so thoughtful. No wonder Mom loves you best." By my 3rd year in college, our business was thriving. Many of our accounts had gone viral, and we were raking in significant profits. It was also during this year that Dad finally felt at ease enough to quit his overseas job and move in with me to focus on his health. In my past life, he had developed late-stage stomach cancer and refused treatment, instead drafting a will to leave everything to me. This time, I ensured he got the best medical care, successfully preventing the worst-case scenario. Dad didn't inform Mom about leaving his job, and after 2 months without receiving her usual allowance, she exploded with rage. She sent him a barrage of texts accusing him of abandoning his wife and daughter. With a deep sigh, Dad confided in Aunt. She, seeing how worn out he was after years of relentless work, urged him to reveal the truth about the past. Years ago, Dad had been in love with another woman, but Mom had schemed against him, getting him drunk and forcing herself on him. She used my existence as leverage, pressuring him into marriage. Unable to let me be aborted, Dad reluctantly agreed. Being a gentleman who avoided conflict, he let Mom take control of their life after marriage. Aunt had always disliked her manipulative sister-in-law, but Dad, believing in his responsibilities as a husband and father, chose to stay for my sake. Mom, however, was plagued by jealousy. Convinced Dad didn't truly love her. She even despised every woman around him, including me. I encouraged Dad to divorce Mom, and she stormed over that night, pointing a finger at my face and yelling, "You ungrateful brat. I should have tossed you into a pit to drown when you were born." I stood silently, waiting for her outburst to end, and then calmly asked, "Back then, did you follow Aunt's advice, drug Dad? Dress in clothes that resembled his first love's style and force yourself on him?" Mom lifted her chin defiantly. "What would you know? If not for Aunt's advice, you wouldn't even exist." "So," I said, "since I was nothing more than a tool for you to win Dad's affection, why do you love Luna more than me?" Mom sneered. "If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have had a premature birth that nearly cost me my life on the operating table. Your father is a heartless man. While I was recovering, he stayed in the hospital looking after you and left me in the care of a nurse. You're just like your father and his first love, both stealing his heart away. If I hadn't threatened to jump off a building while holding you, he wouldn't have obediently handed over his salary." The extent of jealousy and manipulation among women suddenly made sense to me. Even between a mother and daughter, love and hatred could be influenced by selfish motives. I stopped allowing Dad to give Mom money, which enraged her. She caused a scene at his workplace, accusing me of ruining their marriage to pressure me into submission. Mom even called Aunt to back her up, threatening me with public humiliation if I didn't comply. However, Aunt's own reckless behavior caught up to her. In my past life, she had gambled compulsively, seduced a newly released drug lord, and ultimately met her end at his hands. This time, I prepared ahead of time, hiring bodyguards to protect me. But Mom and Aunt, driven by desperation, tried to involve the media by playing the victim. On their way to the reporters, they crossed paths with the drugged-up gangster. The encounter turned violent. Aunt didn't survive, and she dragged Mom into the chaos with her. When Luna arrived, she was visibly pregnant, carrying Ethan's child. Years earlier, during the graduation exams, Ethan had chosen to provoke me by skipping the tests and staying at a hotel with Luna. Both had failed their exams. At first, Ethan's mother didn't approve of Luna, but Ethan, impressed by her skills, assured his mom that they could have a child in the future. This led his family to send the pair to a lower-tier college. Once they tasted forbidden pleasures, neither cared about their education anymore. They moved into an apartment near campus and indulged in a life of excess. After a few years, Luna finally became pregnant with Ethan's baby. Seeing the two bodies in the morgue, Luna broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. Her swollen belly didn't stop her from trying to hit me. "Elena, how could you be so heartless? You even caused your own mother's death." I held back my disgust and said coldly, "Why don't you admit it? Your mother's fate was a consequence of her own choices. Over the years, you've learned plenty of manipulative tricks from Aunt, haven't you? Feeding men all kinds of pills will only harm the child in the end." Luna's face went pale with rage. Ethan, his eyes bloodshot, grabbed my arm. "What are you saying, Elena? Don't you know Luna's family has always used drugs to control men? You've benefited from it too, haven't you? But these substances were far too potent and caused lasting harm to men's health. That explained why, after years of trying, Luna and Ethan had only now conceived." Ethan, his fury boiling over, gripped Luna by the throat. "No wonder you kept trying to get me to take those so-called family tonics. Just go die already." I couldn't stand watching their chaos any longer and turned to leave. Later, Ethan came to find me, holding a medical report from the hospital. "Elena, I didn't expect this. Luna always claimed to love me, but she's been draining me behind my back, planning to use the child to control me. It's a family tradition. Her aunt did the same to my mother to steal someone else's love. Look, I never truly loved Luna. I was only with her at first to make you jealous. But the longer it went on, the harder it became to leave. When you started treating her well, I began to hate you. Love should be pure without a third person involved." He grabbed my arm and asked, "If I make her abort the baby, will you take me back?" What a delusion. My career was thriving, while Ethan couldn't even graduate. Before I could respond, Luna appeared, her eyes red with fury. "Ethan, I love you so much, and now you want her to make me abort our baby?" Ethan stared at her pregnant belly with disgust. If it weren't for my mom trying to use the baby to secure the inheritance, I would have never let you get pregnant in the first place. I couldn't take it anymore. Grabbing the Hermes bag Leon had gifted me, I turned to leave. Ethan wasn't ready to give up and chased after me. At a street corner, a speeding car approached. My reflexes, honed over years of training, allowed me to dodge quickly. Ethan, however, wasn't so lucky. The vehicle ran over his legs. Just as my own legs had been crushed in the past, Luna was arrested after the police reviewed the medical report. They determined her long-term use of hallucinogens and her role in her mother's death had left her mentally unstable. Although she had harmed someone while pregnant, she couldn't be sentenced right away. In a frenzy, Ethan's mother tried to force Luna to have an abortion to sever ties with the child. However, a female officer stepped in to stop her as they headed downstairs. Luna smirked at Ethan's mother. "If I can't have something, I usually destroy it," she said, reminiscent of the time she couldn't claim my crystal ball years ago and smashed it instead. Enraged, Ethan's mom broke free from her restraints, shoved Luna down the stairs, and accused her of attempted murder. However, her actions led to the tragic loss of her own grandson, leaving her with nothing to gain. In response, Ethan's grandfather swiftly announced the division of the family assets. With Ethan losing his leg and becoming physically debilitated, his inheritance rights were revoked. Furious, Ethan's mother pushed him in his wheelchair, demanding a renegotiation of the family's wealth. She even threatened to reveal the family's skeletons if her demands weren't met. I saw the perfect opportunity to escalate the chaos, using the fact that Ethan's family had meddled with my college applications to expose a string of their scandals. The damage was devastating, and Ethan and his mother, having ignited the turmoil, were promptly disowned by the family. Ethan, utterly broken, confronted me. "Why did you have to make it so final?" he asked. I chuckled softly. "In my past life, didn't you push me in front of a car to save Luna?" His face turned ashen. "I don't know what you're talking about," he stammered. "Stop lying," I said. "After the accident, you already remembered our past lives. Before the ambulance arrived, I heard you yelling hysterically. How could this happen? The person who got hit and broke her legs was Elena." Finally, Ethan's arrogance crumbled, and he lowered his head. "Elena, I was wrong. I shouldn't have been so obsessed with that shameless woman. Can you forgive me?" "Why should I?" I retorted. "In the past life, after my legs were shattered in the accident, Luna mocked me. She didn't just steal my fiancé. She had already seduced you long before. Dirty cucumber, don't touch me." Turning away, I walked off, the confident sound of my high heels echoing in the air. The rhythm of my healthy stride was music to my ears. Everything comes full circle, I thought. This was Ethan's karma. Now, with no money, no education, and no hope of walking again, he was destined for a life of despair and poverty. Later, Luna was imprisoned for intentional assault. Ethan's mother, consumed with hatred for ruining her son and grandson, hired people to break Luna's legs in jail. Luna retaliated by accusing Ethan's mom of causing her unborn child's death and filed a lawsuit. The endless cycle of betrayal and vengeance culminated with Ethan's mom also landing in prison. The spectacle of their downfall was as grim as it was poetic. Meanwhile, Dad and Aunt were thriving in the capital. After decades of sacrifice and hard work for their children, the siblings finally had a chance to relax and enjoy life. True to form, Aunt loved to spoil her son. "I made some bird's nest soup for Elena. Take it to her at work," she told Dad, who cheerfully handed me the package. "Leon loves the pancakes I make. Tell him to eat them while they're still warm." My cousin puffed out his cheeks in mock irritation. "I'm a major influencer with millions of followers, and you're treating me like a delivery boy for dog food?" Aunt, unfazed, tapped him on the head. "Quit showing off. If it weren't for your sister and brother-in-law, you'd still be wandering the streets, drinking the northwest wind." Carrying the food to the office, my cousin grumbled, venting his frustration to Leon and me. We exchanged a knowing smile. Deep down, I was simply grateful. Even in the long flow of time, there are always kind and loving people who bring warmth to our lives.